And we're live and we're back. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Odum and Andrea show. This is a podcast where we sit down and we talk about people that do really cool things and people that inspire us to want to, live the best life that we possibly can. Mm-hmm. I'm joined, of course, by my lovely wife, Andrea.
That's nice.
And today we're going to talk about this book called The Art of Resilience by Ross Edgley. Strategies for an Unbreakable Mind and Body. Author of the best-selling The World's Fittest Book. Interesting. Mm-hmm. Let me just put it up there to the camera. Mm-hmm. Is that going to focus? Mm-hmm. I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully it focuses back on me. We don't have a whole unfocused video. It looks focused. I don't know. Anyways, so this is interesting. This is looks like a really thick book. Mm-hmm. You got lots of notes in here.
I do.
Oh, but it's the writing's pretty big.
Some pictures.
There's some
charts.
Pictures in here. If only it had, some
scratch and
snack and some pop-ups. It'd be really
that'd
cool.
Be cool.
Yeah. Okay. This guy looks like he's built like a tank. All right. Interesting. Okay. So this is a really good picture on the front. See all the catch lights in the eyes. Cool. A little dramatic pose. Mm-hmm. The Art of Resilience. So that seems pretty cool about, this seems pretty... Anyways, well, I guess we'll get into it because it seems like a lot of the other things that we've talked about so far about, perseverance or whatever, like the guy who biked, did the 100 triathlons, the Iron Cowboy, and then, of course, Ash Dykes as well, and even Silken Lawman, all these people. Yep. So, take it away. I hand over the mic to you.
I'm going to start by asking if you know what salt tongue is.
I imagine no.
Okay.
Like, do I have it?
Okay.
I don't think so.
No,
when you have too much salt, I guess.
So salt tongue is when you are swimming in the ocean for a long period of time and all the moisture from your mouth is lost. And so the layers of your tongue begin to just erode away and you lose chunks of your tongue.
So your tongue doesn't inflame. It just shrinks apart and starts.
Yeah.
Is that just because of salt water's properties where it just draws up the water osmosis wise?
Yeah. So
that doesn't sound too pleasant.
No. So
did you lose your sense of taste?
I think, yes, you would. Yeah. So this is what this guy dealt with when he swam around the island of Great Britain.
Okay, right. Yeah. Maybe we should take a look. Yeah. Tell us what to do.
Yeah. So this guy is a fucking savage. And so he's done a bunch of crazy stuff, but this is the craziest, is he swam around the island of Great Britain.
The whole thing?
The whole thing.
So Great Britain. Now it has other stuff. Doesn't it have islands within the islands, like up at the top?
Excuse me, sorry.
This is my geography. Up at the top.
Up at the top.
And here we go. Yeah, here's a picture. There's this. There's islands at the top, and there's also this big ass island off to the left here,
which is
what's that?
Ireland. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So basically, Great Britain is made up of England south and then Scotland north.
Scotland.
Yeah, and then Wales is
where
also...
William Wallace is from?
Yes. And then Wales is to the west, the west of England. So
yeah,
that's kind of how it's broken.
There's a picture here. If you don't know, I don't even know if that's going to be visible.
Yeah.
Maybe we could post it up, a picture of it. But anyway, so did he swim across, or was his goal to swim across Ireland as well too? Or
no, he swam in between Great Britain and Ireland. Yeah.
So okay.
So basically...
So that was his plan.
That was his plan.
I don't know if he succeeded or not. I guess we'll find out.
So basically this book is kind of like a manual on how to do it. How to actually...
Why do I need a manual on how to swim
I don't know.
Around Great Britain?
Because there's other lessons in there as well. But even before he swam around Great Britain, he did a lot of other really crazy stuff. So he is a sports scientist. So he went to school to become a sports scientist. He's always been interested in sports.
But a doctor or more of
No, it's just a researcher. And also nutritional sciences as well. Mm-hmm. And then part of what he did is he did a lot of writing. And so he has another book called The World's Fittest Book, and he goes around the world and to all these different kind of places and kind of interviews just almost indigenous or native peoples there and their feats of...
Sorry, where's this?
So he goes to, I think he goes to Mongolia. I think he goes to somewhere in the Amazon. He goes with cowboys in I don't know what some country in South America. I'm not sure which one.
Some country in South America that has cowboys.
Yeah, and so he does like all of these different amazing feats just to kind of see, and like one of the countries in Africa as well. He goes just to see like what they do and how they're resilient and how their bodies are strong.
So sorry, he doesn't go there to do amazing feats himself.
He does them. Yeah,
Okay.
like he gets on a horse and he does some of these
It's much of
different
an amazing
feats.
feat, getting on a horse.
Well, like he's like like riding with them, right? Like trying
Right.
to see what their lifestyle is like, basically. Yeah. So, and like taking lessons from all of these different peoples and then putting it into a book, basically. So then he did a marathon called the world's strongest marathon is what he called it, and he basically pulled a Mini Cooper for this whole marathon.
For how long?
Marathon.
Like
42.2 kilometers. Yeah.
Kilometers, mile. Yeah. Right.
He did a tree.
Why would you want to do that?
He did a tree-athlon. So he carried a 100-pound tree and did this big like branch of a tree kind of thing, and then
just like a log. Yeah.
And did like a triathlon.
A triathlon?
Well, he called it a triathlon.
Oh, triathlon.
Because he
right.
swam and
with
ran
a tree.
With a tree. Yeah.
How much did this tree weigh?
I think it was 100 pounds.
How do you even?
Yeah. Savage.
Do that. You must have some kind of backpack though to put it on you. So
he had it and like there's pictures. He's just like roped on him. Like,
well, that's what I mean, because you can't ride a bike and just.
Well, no, of course not.
Well, I guess you can.
So,
and I mean, I used to bike with my hockey gear, which is not very pleasant,
No.
but not for a marathon.
Yeah.
Or 160
so
kilometers.
here's a picture of him. This is his Instagram, so you can see how he has it on the back of the bike.
Oh yeah. No, it's not bad.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's bad. I wouldn't want to do it.
Big
But
fucking tree.
this guy's arms is bigger than the tree.
I know, he's a giant.
Crazy.
Anyway, so how the swim came about was he was in like Bermuda, I think it was, and he was with the Marines at the Marine Training Center, and he did like a full 48-hour swim. It was in a pool, so it was a 48-hour swim.
Just back and forth,
185 kilometers.
This is what he ended up doing.
Yeah, and so he's done it. Like he finishes it, and he's eating in like the mess hall. And one of the Marines came up to him and said, "What do you like? Why? Like, what are you doing?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, I'm training for the world's longest current neutral swim in an ocean," and he was going to do it around like somewhere in Bermuda.
Mm-hmm.
And the Marine was like, "Well, that's kind of lame." He's like, "What? That was lame. I'm like, what?" And he's like, "Well, you should swim around Great Britain, like you're British. Like that seems like a pretty big deal, so you should do that." And so that idea just kind of stuck, and so that's what he decided to do. And so
can we let's just back up a little bit. So how old is this guy?
I think he's 36.
Like right now.
That. Yeah, I think
and
he's
how
like
old
36.
was he when he did this? What year did he do this?
He did it in 2018.
So he did this in 2018. So before then, he's had like a career as being a science researcher.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know if he's a researcher, but it's difficult because that's the thing I had a hard time with, was kind of finding out like his actual kind of background and what he did before he did all these different feats. Right, so it's not really written in this book. Well, no. This one is just about his swim and how he was able to do the swim. But like,
he a ex-military guy?
No, so I think he went to school. So he went to school. He got a scholarship, and I think the reason he got a scholarship to university was because he was playing. I think it was polo, like water polo. So that's how he's already a good swimmer. Yeah. So that's what he was doing. Water polo was what he was doing. And so he played like internationally with it as well. So, but yeah, like it's difficult to find out like what he did.
Okay. So, but I guess then it's safe to say that he's always just been a really active, fit guy kind 100%. Of thing. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess this idea then from this Marine guy to not just swim in the Bermuda, but to swim. Because you said something too about like non-current,
current neutral.
So that's not current neutral, I imagine, going across. And what does that mean? Current neutral? There's nothing pulling you each way. It's almost like calm open water.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So then he has to, of course, do all kinds of research and to prep for this. So he goes and he gets like a full-on like physical and talks to some like swimming like trainers that have trained like high-level swimmers and that sort of thing, and they're just like. Yeah, your body's not a swimmer's body. Like, there's no way you can do this,
Right.
basically. Because,
Yeah.
like, if you look at him, like, he's built like a tank.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
He's just muscular.
Yeah,
big-
so he's 5'8", and then 88 kilograms, which I'm
Yeah.
not sure what that is in pounds.
Who cares?
So 194 pounds.
Sure.
So they say, like, he's kind of short and he's heavy, but because muscle isn't buoyant, that's an issue. But then they're like, oh, you have like nice childbearing hips and butt, so that'll kind of keep you like your butt up and everything. And they're like, your head's really big and it's gonna like weigh you down as well. But the scientist that he was talking to, it's like, he's not looking at it in terms of, like, for most swimmers, it's just like in a pool and it's lap swimming and it's not this like huge endurance thing.
Yeah.
It's like a short amount of time.
Yeah.
And
Well, even
so,
if it is for 24 hours, it's still
yeah,
you're not swimming around the Great Britain.
yeah, exactly. And so because he has all this strength, that's what makes him more robust and more able to do, because endurance is different than
Yeah,
the
I can
sprint,
imagine
right?
losing a whole bunch of muscle doing this. But anyways, let's find out.
So then he also enlists the help of, I don't know how he met these people, but it's the Knight family. And so they have this boat. It's almost like a catamaran. So it's called, I'm going to pronounce it wrong, the Hecate. And that's what it's called. And so it's a 53-foot, 23-foot wide catamaran.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the family that crews the boat. The dad is the one that does these people have been sailing like forever. Like, they have so much experience, especially the dad, who is calculating the tides and when he should go in to swim and all of this kind of stuff.
So you're just saying he's partnering with this family that owns a boat to help to swim along with him.
Yeah. So
is the idea because that he's going to have to get out of the water to sleep?
Yeah, well, of course, and eat, yeah. Because his whole thing was the whole time he was swimming, he was not going to touch land the whole time. It was just the boat and the ocean. Mm-hmm. So that's what he ends up doing. And so, because you have to, the big thing too is like he had to time when he was swimming with the currents and the tides and if there was storms and all of these different things. So he had this guy that was.
So how'd they make sure that when he was on the boat that they wouldn't stay placed? I guess they just anchor down.
I think they must have. He didn't talk at all about that, but they must have.
I don't know. I have no idea about sailing or anything like that. But like when you anchor, do you still move a little bit or?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. Idea. I'm sure like they had GPS and everything too to kind of make sure it was like accurate.
I mean, those are little details that I don't care about. I mean, the fact that you're just doing that, it's like, oh, you went off by like half a kilometer. It's like, who cares?
Yeah. And so basically what he would have to do, or what he did, was swim for six hours. Mm-hmm. So kind of 6 hours swim, 6 hours rest, 6 hours swim, 6 hours rest.
Oh, that's a weird cycle.
Yeah, well, just to work with the tides, I guess.
Right, yeah. Because the tides are always, but then too, that's always shifting to one end of the day. It is depending on.
So that's why he had
moon,
Matt, the captain, to kind of figure everything out for him. So obviously he didn't have to do it. And so
I don't have time to deal with this. I'm too busy swimming.
Mm-hmm. And so like the big main thesis of the book is he calls what he kind of came up with Stoic sports science. So basically, he's fusing the teachings of the ancient Greek philosophers, the Stoics, with modern sports scientists and what we know about strength and resiliency and endurance sports and that sort of thing. And so that's what his own philosophy he came up with. Well,
strength and resilience are two different things. Like, how does he define resilience, or how are we defining resilience in this?
To be able to continue on and be able to swim for 12 hours each day for like 157 days.
So we didn't get into how long it was, but so.
Oh yeah, of course.
So just resilience, you have having control over your mind and body to be able to do things to
do it.
Mm-hmm. Normally wouldn't be possible, or that, fighting over your mind is telling you probably to quit so many times, I would imagine.
Yeah, exactly. And he really does get into specifics about what fatigue is and how our bodies deal with fatigue. And it reminded me a lot about David Goggins, which we'll do that book eventually. We keep saying that, but we will. Right. But he talks about really if you think you've given it all, you've really only given 40%, because your mind quits before your body. And there is a physiological reason behind that. Your body's whole job, or your brain's whole job, is to protect your body and maintain that homeostasis. So your brain's going to make you shut down to keep you safe, and that pain
Right.
and whatever's to keep you safe rather
Yep.
than to, so you just have to get over that
Yep.
piece of it. So yeah, and so fatigue is, like he was saying, it's like a complex, like there's so many factors that go into what makes you feel fatigued and tired, basically. So yeah, so I thought that was like really interesting. I hadn't heard it talked about like that before. So yeah, so basically, like there's like, I don't know how many lessons in the book, but it goes through like all the different kind of lessons he learns as he goes through.
Before we get to that, then
Yeah.
let's just put into perspective what this actual feat was, because we've already touched a little bit on it.
Yeah.
So he decides to swim across Great Britain, and he ends up around. Yeah, sorry, not across. So he swims around it, and he does complete it, and he completes it in 157 days.
I think that's what it was.
So 157 days. That's like what? That's what?
5 months.
5 months or so. And that's nonstop pretty much every single day, except for maybe barring storms or whatever, as you were saying.
I think, I don't know how many days. There was a couple of storms. I don't know if he completely, it was a whole day that they lost. I'm not sure, but
yeah. Okay, so he did that, which is amazing, because I mean, we're talking about, I mean, I remember the Iron Cowboy, where it was 100 days of doing a marathon every day. This is almost very similar, or maybe it's a little bit less. I don't know, because he's saying 6 hours on, 6 hours off. That's not so bad compared to, I could see like doing a marathon or a triathlon taking like over 12 hours. Yeah. So it's like, it seems like he's more awake than not awake, whereas this one has a little bit more rest, but then it's also longer for like 5 months. Anyways, so either way, this is insane stuff. It's really crazy. I can't even imagine just being in a pool for 24 hours, let alone for 5 months or what have you. Yeah. But I guess with salt water, it's a little bit easier to swim in the ocean, in the sense that you have more buoyancy just because of salt water, so the density is a little bit. I guess, but I mean, there's so many other things that you have to deal with. Yeah, on top of it, sharks, squids. Oh yeah, we'll get there. And we'll get octopi. There. Yeah, we'll get there. Yeah, and so jellyfish. So he starts in the town of Margate. And so Margate is it's a little town. And so if you follow like the Thames River, which is like the main big river that goes through London, England. So that river eventually leads out into the English Channel, which is the channel between England and France. And so he starts at the town Margate, so just outside of where the Thames River empties into the English Channel. Okay. So he starts there. And does he go clockwise or counterclockwise? He goes, I guess, clockwise. Yeah, clockwise. So he goes west. That's counterclockwise. No, on my stomach. Oh, no, it isn't. No, it's not your stomach. So yeah, like, sorry. Cars going over the neighbors. Yeah. Yeah. So that's what he starts there. Right. That is clockwise. Yeah. And so it's interesting because it's like he has to also swim past these like crazy boating lanes, I guess, that are shipping lanes. That's the word I'm looking for. Thank you. Yeah. And so like some of these shipping lanes, they're like the busiest shipping lanes in the world. And so they have to, of course, like he like prepared by like calling ahead and telling them what they was going to do. Like the Coast Guard or whatever it is that controls the people that are the traffic. Yeah. And so, well, when you get close to ports, I mean, remember that video we saw? It was like a 4K video of these people, like, or this guy who put a camera on a cargo container ship or whatever, and you see it going across the ocean. And then when you get close to ports, it's like you don't realize there's so much traffic. Oh my gosh. And of course it's sped up, right? But it's really cool to think about, like, there's all kinds, just like even in the air, right? There's all kinds of planes. You have to be careful because there's so many. So same thing when you get close to busy ports. Yeah. So lots of these boats going around. Yeah. So he definitely had to, they radioed in and said like, okay, we're here. Can we swim across? And they're like, yeah, but you have to go this fast because there's boats coming in. You're going to get hit by them. So, so it's interesting. So he talks a lot about Stoicism, and he talks about, and for people that don't know, it just basically teaches you to be in control and to kind of like accept, to be stoic and you have to be able to be in control of yourself and your emotions, even when you're in adverse situations or situations that are completely out of your control. So if something bad happens to you, you're still able to maintain that control of yourself, because being uncontrolled, like not being in control of your emotions and
and mentally, like that just makes everything
It's just
worse.
not allowing external factors to be able to dictate how you feel internally.
Very well said. Yes. And so that's his whole point, is it's kind of like a trifecta of he has a strong body. He made sure he had a strong body going into it, a stoic mindset, and then the strategic planning, which goes into, you know, calling into the Coast Guard to say like, this is what he's doing.
Developing a stoic mindset, I think that takes years, if not a lifetime, of just constant training and discipline. Much like martial arts.
Yes.
Where it's like you're never at the pinnacle, you know, you're always learning. Because it's difficult. I mean, it's very difficult to not be affected by things that happen externally.
Yep.
Whether it's external forces with just people that you know, or external forces that are like the world economy or a pandemic or whatever, right? So there's all these kinds of forces that are acting upon us, and to not be affected by it is a very difficult thing.
Yeah. Well, and he talks a lot about different cultures that he had visited, and so he talks even about these Japanese monks that do this. It's called a I'm not gonna say it right, okugaki, and it's basically they're monks and they have to do these this crazy amount of running in this period of time, and basically they're running like a marathon a day for I don't know how long, and he talks about in terms of like motivation as well, and like it's an internal type of motivation, because when he was there, he's like, oh, what's the fastest someone's done it in? And they just kind of laughed at him, and they're like, well, like, that's not the point, right? The point is just like doing it for the sake of your internal reward of like, you did it.
Going through the struggle.
Yeah, exactly. And so he talks a lot about, there's a couple different cultures in the countries that he was in Africa. I think it was maybe in Kenya. And some of these like rite of passage rituals that some of the young men go through are kind of crazy. And so he was talking about that, like they get, I don't know how old they are, but they get circumcised without any anesthetic with like a sharp stick, and they have to do all these crazy things before. So he's like, but then I guess from this area, this is where you have these runners who are just like best in the world runners, because
Kenyans are known for their their runners,
but just because they're able to withstand and endure that pain because they've gone through worse, right? So it's kind of like going back to like Wild, the book that we did with Cheryl Strait. It's just like she'd already been through the worst, so this was like nothing. So it's kind of similar for them, right?
Yep.
So I thought that was interesting. And then
remember that there's those certain tribes or cultures or whatever in South America where they have to go through these constant rituals of getting stung by bullet ants. And it's not even like one sting. They have to put their hands in like these mitts where there's all these bullet ants that are laced on the inside, so they get stung I don't know how many times by these bullet ants.
Well, and not only that, but like in the ritual he was talking about, they can't even like make a face. Like they have to be like completely, and I think it's the same thing for that one as well. You have to be really like, just do it. So
shall we do that? Is that our next test? Getting stung by bullet ants?
I don't think so.
I remember once the Coyote Peterson did it. He was just like on the floor rolling around in pain.
Yeah.
So being very stoic there.
No.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I think bullet ant.
No.
Take a guess by the name.
Yeah. So, and what's really interesting about this book is, so each lesson, it's kind of like a chronological journey of his swim, but then also each different lesson as he goes through. But he also, you can tell just like how much he loves his country, because he describes the coastline and he describes the different people, like when they go into port or whatever just to get supplies, and the people will just come up and bring him all kinds of food and stuff like that. And so you can tell like how much
he was on like social media, I guess, documenting his journey and all that jazz.
So but you can tell like how much people, or just like how much he loves his country, and just like how beautiful he thinks it is, because it does sound like absolutely incredible, because he goes by like the White Cliffs of Dover and all these different kind of landmarks along the way. Is really, really cool. So what else does he talk about? So he talks about also kind of like how he trained to do this, and it was and he basically said like there's not really a blueprint for this. He just kind of had to come up with it on his own. So he says like, to be a resilient athlete, there's basically kind of 4 things that you're training. And so one is tolerability. So your body's ability to tolerate stress, specificity. So you're going to make sure that stress is a specific type of stress. So for him, it's going to be swimming, right?
So he trains by doing a lot of swimming.
Yes.
You mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then durability. So you're going to, over time, increase the body's ability to tolerate that stress. And then you have to make it individual for yourself. So you're not going to start one person out on the same thing that you would start him out on.
Sure.
Right? It has to be an
makes sense.
individual
Everything's
thing.
always individualized.
Yeah. And then so the bottom line is that altogether, this is going to bring to increase your work capacity. So how much work that you can do.
Your body can do, yeah.
Exactly. And so I thought that was really interesting. And he does go on to talk about like all of the different types of workouts that he did. And so he did a lot of like endurance and training, because you want to be specific in your training. And that's called the specific adaptation to imposed demands. Your body has to specifically adapt to the demands that you place on it, obviously.
Sure.
And then you get good at it as you repeat it. So if you're going to be a runner, then you just need to run. Like that's just what you have to do. It has to be specific, obviously.
Yep.
And so that's why you don't train too many different things, because you don't want to, as he says, like dilute the effectiveness of your training. So he does do strength training for sure, but he does it in a really specific way that it doesn't take away from that endurance swim training, but that it like it complements it basically.
Sure. Can you give me an example of like what you mean by that? Like what his strength is doing?
Yeah. Well, what
he's doing for strength.
So training. It's a lot of functional stuff.
Like with upper body, I would imagine, or a lot of stuff with repetitive leg motions.
Sorry, I don't know exactly where it is here. I think. So some things would be, he does like actually kind of really similar to like what I'm doing right now, is like he does the zone 2 training, which it increases your body's work capacity.
Right.
But then also he does like HIIT training as well.
So let's just back up. You just mentioned zone 2 training. So zone 2 training is the training you do when you keep your heart rate at around 120 beats per minute. So you're not going at a ridiculous pace. You're kind of just going at a kind of moderate pace for how long? At least a good enough chunk of time, I would imagine. Yeah. So it's like very low intensity cardio. Basically,
yeah, exactly.
Right?
Okay. But then you'd also do strength-based training. So some of that would be, like I said, the really functional training. So like hinges and pulls, squats, drag throw flips. So he did things like plyometric push-ups, bench press, bear crawls, box jumps. Yeah. Just all of those.
Yeah. No, I see. Yeah.
Yeah. Really, really functional tire flips.
He's not going to the gym and just lifting barbells and whatever.
No.
Except we see just how he bench press. So other than that.
Yeah. So it's very functional. And so again, the whole point is to complement what you're doing, complement those muscles you're going to need to recruit.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
So do you want to get into the lessons learned?
Yeah.
Well,
can we talk about just some of the crazy things he sees?
Sure, yeah, that's fine.
So he gets to this one point and he's like, he kind of looks down and there's like a freaking whale near him.
That's kind of cool.
Near him.
What kind of whale?
So it's
just a big one.
No, it's a minke. Well, yeah, it's a big one, but it's a minke whale. And so this minke whale, it was about 16 feet long, which is 5 meters. So basically because he looks over at Matt and he's like, am I okay here? Like, should I get out? Like, is this going to...
Matt's the boat guy.
The captain.
So is he always really close to the boat?
He's fairly close, yeah.
That's fairly close.
Yeah, like within a couple meters,
okay.
I think. Yeah. And so he's like, and he's so funny. He has this like hilarious British sense of humor, and it's awesome. And so he was just like, he was like, I think she thought I was some like demented like like seal or something
No,
like that, and
sure.
she swam with him kind of across the Bristol Channel, so it was this kind of open water part until he got to the other side, and then she was like, okay, you're cool, I'm gonna let you go, kind of thing. So
Interesting.
So
Well, whales don't eat seals though.
no, of course not. No, no, these whales are herbivores. Yeah, so he's fine. But it's just
Well,
like,
not herbivores. Don't they eat like plankton? Is that
I think
considered herbivore?
I think so. I don't know. But anyways, so
Anyways.
it was just really, really funny. So then he also swims through, it's the world's third largest whirlpool, and it's called the Vekrin, I think. I'm not going to say it right. But it's the third
There's
world.
lots of things you're not going to say right today.
I know. So when this is like around kind of Scotland, and it's just the way like the architecture of, I guess, like the under the like the seafloor bed, and like there's islands around, and it just creates this like giant whirlpool that he had to swim through. And so
what's the diameter of this?
I don't know.
It's not like so crazy like a bathtub draining. You know, like a small little thing that you see.
Well, no, it's not like
it's
that.
gonna suck in a bunch of stuff, right? But it's enough to cause you to have to spend a whole lot more energy, I guess, swimming through it, right? Because you're fighting through, getting sucked in, I guess.
Yeah. And so also at this point, he has to swim through jellyfish. So there's so many jellyfish at this part.
The swim
this
pool,
like vortex.
The vortex pool.
Yeah, and so it acts like a funnel for these jellyfish, and so
because the jellyfish are stuck. Are they stuck in it too?
Well, I don't know if they're stuck, but this is where you see like a lot of them is just in this like one place. And so they're lion's mane jellyfish. And so he gets 22 stings to the face in a single night. And he's like, it hurts so much. And he's like, but he's swimming through the pain. And then he gets out of the water. He's like, oh, it still really hurts. And like, Matt's like,
because it's still on you?
Because it's like wrapped around your face. But he tells this hilarious story when he's on Rogan, where he basically like his face has like puffed up so much his goggles won't fit on, and so he's trying to swim and there's jellyfish freaking everywhere, he can't see, so he takes his fist and he passes to like punch the goggles into his eye to make them like stick. Oh
so
my god! So he can see. Yeah. So eventually, like that, he gets up, like ends up wearing like a full on like face mask, like wetsuit face mask to avoid these crazy.
Or at least to avoid getting stung in the face.
Yeah.
So he's probably getting stung elsewhere too.
Well, he has like a full on wetsuit.
Oh, so these ones aren't bad enough to sting through his suit.
I don't think so.
Right.
I don't think so. But one really interesting lesson from this is,
don't swim across or around Great Britain. Is that the lesson?
But it's using, it's reframing your situation. And so this is like across the board, a lesson to be learned is always reframing your situation. So he's like, I wasn't stung by the jellyfish. The jellyfish hugged my face.
Yeah, I guess.
So
regardless, it still hurt like hell.
Yeah. But like within the book, like he goes through so many different examples of like actual other athletes where he took his lessons from like not only the literature but also like other teams. And so one of the studies was like unsuccessful athletes were more likely to use like maladapting coping mechanisms, like, oh, I'm so tired, rather than like trying to reframe it in their minds.
Just like the negative way to look. It's almost like the difference between the glass is half full or the glass is half empty, almost kind of thing.
Yeah. And so that was one of the big things when they were on the boat, was like there was no negative talk allowed, just because to not bring things down.
Right.
So that was really important. And so he says, we would always accept the environment and our situation and ease our suffering by choosing a better mindset that helped us manage the various exercise stressors so that they didn't trigger signals to tell the brain to stop or slow down.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah. And so he did like a lot of, he also talks about humor and how humor can be like really important, and it can actually act as a primitive form of stress-induced analgesia, which is like
what?
So
what did you just say?
An analgesic. I'm not saying it right again, but it's like a pain reliever, like a medical pain reliever, like
laughter.
Tylenol is like an analgesiac. So humor as like natural one.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that reminds me of Patch Adams.
Yes, exactly.
I mean,
exactly.
I don't know how. I mean, that's based on a true story, but I guess the whole thing is like laughter. There's something too, like, what isn't there a saying? Laughter is the best medicine.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
I mean,
it helps you get through.
You know, it's not going to cure everything, but the fact of being positive and being in a good mood and yeah, it could do wonders.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like, I mean, training your mind is such a difficult thing, but if you can do it, I think you can break through so many barriers of things that you never thought were possible.
Absolutely.
It's something that we're going to need to have to figure out how we can do that, because we're nowhere near being able to think about doing any of this kind of stuff, right? But we want to. Anyways, we'll talk about that later, but
so
it's quite fascinating.
And then he also, this is somewhere in around Scotland, he also swims. There's like a basking shark. That's like a 17-foot long basking shark. That's and I don't know if you've seen these things. They're terrifying looking. Again, they don't eat humans. Like they just eat.
Most sharks don't. But yeah,
open up their mouths. But even like they're not even a typical carnivorous shark. But these things open up their mouths so big and just like they're filter.
Yeah.
So like that would be so scary.
That'd be cool to see. Yeah.
It'd be so cool. Yeah. So the one thing that happens along this swim is his father. He finds out his father is diagnosed with cancer.
That's not fun.
And
at
so
all.
no. And so
so he has a choice to make whether he keeps going or stops.
Or stops. And his dad makes him say, no, you need to finish this. Like it doesn't matter. Let's just like focus on finishing it. So he has this, he talks about it's called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so we all, it's a pyramid. And so we all have like our basic like food and water and shelter. And then it just kind of, and then it just kind of goes up from there. And like the top human need would be like that self-actualization. And so his dad understood that this is part of his like hierarchy of needs. And to get that self-actualization was really important for him. So that's why he pushed him forward. And so again, he gets that internal motivation that he was talking about too, that to push through, and so he can see his dad when he's finished. So and like bringing new meaning to it as well. So and so when he talks about like how the sea, the ocean, there's so many uncontrollables. He runs into, they get stopped by two different really big storms, not quite hurricanes, but like really huge winds and stuff like that. So he says,
but they probably don't get too many hurricanes up there because it's pretty northern.
So then he says, Epictetus, I don't think I said that right. But he's one of the Stoics, said, "Seek not for events to happen as you wish, but rather wish for events to happen as they do, and your life will go smoothly." And then Seneca, he quotes Seneca saying, "Fate leads the willing and drags along the reluctant." So I love that one because it's like, you don't have a choice. You just got to do what you got to do. So so there's tons of lessons in this. It's just like, it's constant. And it's all based in science, like all of the different things. And so that's really cool. The one really cool thing was he talks a lot about pacing and how when he's swimming, his pacing is really important. Like you just can't go in and just go nuts. No, right? Of course. You have to keep that pacing. It's so important. Yeah. And that's keeping your heart rate at sustainable levels as well. And so, like, again, this is with the zone 2. So it's keeping your heart rate at about 50 to 75% of your max heart rate. So is he wearing a heart rate monitor? I think he is. Yeah. So, and then he talks about like a lot of different examples in other adventures with using, the Stoicism and those lessons from the Stoics. And so one really good example was, I forget the guy's first name, but his last name's Shackelton, and he was an Antarctic explorer, and his whole crew, they get stranded there. And so obviously trying to go by the hierarchy of needs, like not much is they're barely able to just get food and water before they're saved. So sorry, these are old Antarctic explorers? Like, early 1900s. And so I guess he hid because he's the captain. And so they kind of got rid of any of like the captain or, you know, bottom crew. Like there was no like
The
hierarchy of people.
The chain of command.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. And so he just let it go. Like we're just all in it together kind of thing. So that was like morale boosting as well. And
that's interesting because I wonder, I could see how that could work for a smaller group, but do you need to have the chain of command in order to have a fully functional, you know, like a larger system to operate, right? Like a military, right?
Yeah.
Like, does it fall apart if there's no chain of command? You
don't-
can't just have everyone trying to make a decision and then nothing gets done.
I
Because
think all the men trusted him and looked up to him, but in terms of like different chores, there was no like
Right.
everybody helped out.
So they probably
kind of
still
thing.
had some type of leader that's like,
Yeah.
hey, we're going this way and
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then he talks about, it's called the Stockdale Paradox. And so what's interesting about this was I think this Stockdale guy was a prisoner of war. And so they interviewed him because he was able to get out of being a prisoner of war. I forget where this was. I want to say Vietnam, but I could be wrong. But they were talking about, well, how did you survive when like all the other POWs like that were captured with you, like they died? And he's like, because they were so optimistic. They were like, oh, we're going to get rescued before Christmas. And then they wouldn't get rescued. Oh, we're going to get rescued before then. And
going
so
up and down like that is
exactly
really.
And so his thing was, he's like, I just knew we were going to get rescued. I didn't put a timeline on it. I just had faith that it was going to happen. And so he says we should never confuse faith that we will prevail in the end with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of our current reality. So it's like being able to being realistic about where you are and what's happening to you, but also having faith that the outcome, the end goal is going to be okay.
Would you say faith or would you say hope? Like you're hopeful.
Maybe.
Like would faith be considered something like an unjustifiable belief in something, or there's no evidence of it? Of like, you know, like,
no, I don't.
Or are you hopeful that you're going to get rescued?
Yeah, maybe hopeful. I don't know. So like what he says for
I just think of the Shawshank Redemption, where I see what you're saying. It's like if you think you're going to be rescued and it constantly doesn't happen, then you could get down yourself. But you know, how do you have it where you just believe or you have hope that something is going, like they always say, like hope is the most powerful thing, but the other guy's like, no, you can't have hope because that'll bring you down. So I don't know, it's, do you know what I mean?
think you can call it whatever you want as long as it's the concept itself that you're understanding.
Eventually you're going to get the outcome. You're going to get to the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, whether you call that faith, hope, belief, I don't know.
But regardless, you just don't know how long the tunnel is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so like he says, because all he can think about is getting home to his dad. And so he said, I had been swimming for 2 days within the parameters of the Stockdale Paradox, entirely focused on getting home, but equally making peace with the speed and situation I found myself in. Because when they were waylaid by those 2 storms, it's like he's just sitting there like wanting to get home. But it's like you have to just accept you can't go anywhere. There's a huge freaking storm out there. So he means that there was a storm, he couldn't swim, and he knows that the longer he's not swimming, the longer it's going to take for him to get home to his dad.
Yeah.
So, yeah. What else was I going to say? So then he also talks a lot about nutrition and what he's eating while he's doing this, and how like that's like his like main focus as well, right? Is trying to get enough nutrition into him, and not just that, but like the right type of nutrition. And so he had 5 basic principles. It was calorie density, nutrient quality, palatability, digestibility, and then hydration.
Yeah.
So, I love this one thing that he says. He says, nutritionists compartmentalize nutrients that are never compartmentalized in nature. We are unfortunately failing to take into account the complexity of the human body and all its different variables.
Can you give me an example of what he means by nutritionists compartmentalize stuff? Like, what does that mean?
So I think you could talk about like like omega-3 fatty acids, right? We hear omega-3 fatty acids are the best thing. You just need to take this supplement and you'll be fine.
But that's what nutritionists will say.
Yes. Well, not all, but like
Right,
it's a generalization. But yeah, but when you think about it, it's just like, well, no, like just eat a salmon fillet and you're getting everything together, because the point is things are more digestible and your body knows what to do with them better. They're more absorbable. They're more like when
it's a mixed mash of a bunch of different things.
And how you would find it in nature, right? Like that's why with juicing, I have an issue with it, because you're getting all the juice, so you're getting all the calories, and I'm sure you're getting some of like the phytonutrients and stuff, but you're missing all that fiber.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not getting how you were intended to get it in nature, right?
It was delicious.
It is delicious.
Yeah, but that's the thing too. You have to, when you're talking about juicing, or like when we used to juice back in the day, it's talking about just having juice and that's it, nothing else, right? So like I have no problems with having a fresh glass of orange juice or whatever, as part of a meal or whatever. Do you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
So you're still getting,
but
I see your point.
Yeah. So I really liked that.
Yeah.
And so for him, he was getting like 10,000 to 15,000 calories a day.
So what was he eating? What was calorie dense and whatever?
Well, this is like my favorite part, because my current obsession.
Oh, he's eating dehydrated bananas?
No, just bananas. They would Matt would take bananas and just throw them at him when he was swimming.
Yeah, so they're all wet.
He would get they're still in the peel.
Oh.
And so he would get them and he would get really good at throwing them. And so every time he would eat a banana, they'd mark it on the thing in the boat. So,
so he's unpeeling it in the water?
I guess
so.
So
He'd stop swimming, I guess,
I
just
guess
to eat a banana?
Yeah, but he says he calls bananas the unsung hero of the swim. So, but because they're easily digestible, the texture is smooth, and they were easy to throw.
They go down.
They go down good.
Go down well.
So
yeah, I mean, I guess they're dense, but I mean, still, only one banana is like what, 100, 150 calories. So if he's eating 15,000, that's like.
So he would eat
like 100 bananas.
So he would eat stuff.
Or 1,000 bananas. I don't know. Can't do math again.
So what would he? So he would eat stuff like oatmeal with a ton of stuff in it. So like nut butters, really good fats and that sort of thing.
I guess he would have that stuff too when he's like inside the boat.
Oh yeah,
so
yeah.
Most of the time he would eat when he's inside the boat,
yes.
but then just have maybe bananas and whatever when he's swimming.
Yeah, snacks, or I think he had maybe kind of power bars and stuff like that.
And water. Well. How often would he take drinks? Would he have a pack to hydrate?
He didn't talk too much about that. So, but yeah, so he would have fat fueling porridge. So oats, blueberries, banana, peanut butter, dark chocolate, whey protein, flaxseed.
Oh man, that's too much stuff.
Oh yeah.
The peanut butter and the chocolate stuff. It doesn't. I know I love Reese's Pieces, but I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
And then in oatmeal with blueberry, that sounds like a nasty combination.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
But that's definitely dense, that's for sure.
So then he would have just things like whole wheat tortillas with a chicken kind of wrap type thing. And then for swimming, banana bread, granola bars.
Ooh, banana bread.
Yeah, your favorite. Smoothies. Just easily digestible carbs while he was actually in the swim. So, yeah.
But good carbs. So no pastas.
Yeah, he says noodles. He'd have noodles. Yeah, rice, brown rice, all that kind of stuff.
It's so crazy when you talk about nutrition. And it's everyone has their own thing, and it's crazy because the other people the best thing, it's vegan or whatever it is. And the other guy, it's I just eat meat. And then other people don't have pasta. Those carbs are the worst. People are well, I live off of carbs or whatever. Because you'll never get the right answer. So this is of what's the best for you.
Yeah. And this is probably one of my favorite quotes from the book. And he says, when deciding what foods to eat, I didn't want to strictly follow a specific diet plan, since we humans were never meant to eat through rules, regulations, and checklists.
No, it's whatever's available.
Yeah, they're simply too restrictive, and we're biologically wired to seek variety, which is true. So yeah.
Unless it's pizza and cheeseburgers. I just eat that all day, every day.
Obviously. Yeah. So and the other thing he talks a lot about is protein and how important protein was, because this whole time he was swimming, and like he's swimming through some pretty garbage water. Like you have to remember, he swims past like a nuclear power plant, and he's like, that water tastes weird, and they're like, yeah,
right,
nuclear power plant.
But
so
just to be fair to nuclear power plants, it's not like it's radioactive when you get close by. I mean, people work there, but yeah, who knows whatever kind of byproducts are going in there. But yeah,
so
like it's going by like a garbage dump or some sewage
but
that's
the
dumping
whole
raw
point
sewage
is like
into the ocean.
he didn't get sick the whole time he was swimming, which is pretty remarkable, right?
But do you get sick mostly from contact with other humans? And then when viruses and bacteria are known to jump from human or animal contact as opposed to
that's fair, but like I don't know what you're exposed to in that water, right? I don't know.
But maybe it's things that don't really know how to attack humans. I don't know. This is getting into other different territories of how that
definitely
virology works, but
what he talked about is like how important protein was, because number one, your immune system requires so much protein to function optimally, and not only that, he's also dealing with muscle tissue breakdown, so you have to make sure he has enough protein so you're not dealing with this muscle breakdown.
So is that why he was having a bunch of whey protein or whatever?
I think
is that even good type of protein to have?
Yeah, that's probably the best, the most digestible. Yeah.
Where does it come from?
Whey?
Yeah.
From cows.
Like cow milk?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
Yeah, that's always so weird.
Yeah.
Drinking other animals' milk. It's always so weird. But it's like you eat the animal, but drinking its milk?
Yeah. Well, that's not technically drinking the milk, but
it doesn't come from milk. How do they make whey protein?
I don't know. I don't know.
I have
process. I don't know.
Because I don't know. Do they take milk and then do something to it?
Well, they do. They have to like separate it out. Just like like you skim the whey. You do like they skim the whey off the top of it and then dehydrate it. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's interesting.
What it is. But so at the end of the day, he swims. It's 157 days.
Is that just time at sea, or that's how many days swimming?
That's.
Do you know what I mean? Because it was a couple days
from start to finish.
Okay.
Yeah. 1,780 miles, 2.3 million strokes, 649 bananas eaten, over 100 jellyfish stings, 2 minke whales.
I thought it'd be more bananas
seals.
than that. That's only like 3 or 4 a day.
Yeah. So, and so at the very end,
I think you eat more than that.
Probably. So he says, what lesson can be learned from this? That anything is possible. So.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah. So.
I'm going to start by eating bananas. That'll be my first thing.
Eat bananas.
I'll start slow.
I'm already halfway there.
We'll start slow.
The amount of bananas I consume in a day, it's shocking.
Yeah.
Shocking.
So that's crazy. So you said 1.7 miles. You and your miles, I have no idea what that means.
Sorry, I will look it up right now.
That's like 3,000 kilometers or so.
And I don't know what, like you're British. Use kilometers for metric.
British were the first ones to have the imperial system, weren't they? Didn't it come from Britain?
But I'm pretty sure, yes, but I'm pretty sure they're also metric though. They turned over to metric, unlike the States, it does not use metric. So anyway, 1,780 miles is 2,864 kilometers.
Close.
Yeah, you're close.
2,800 kilometers. That is crazy.
That's pretty crazy.
All right. So on a scale of 1 to 10, in terms of a book, just a book to read.
So this one's hard because it's really it's really well written. He's hilarious. There's so many funny stories in here that I laughed out. Like I just laughed out loud. but it can be really sciencey and really technical because he does cite so many studies and so many different like examples of teams and sports. And
but this is still your rating, what you give it, because that's what you like, right? So this is your rating.
So I would give it 10.
I'm not saying this is what other people are going to rate it. Like, no, you rate it, right?
No, I understand, but I'm just saying
this is just your thing.
Yeah, it can get pretty technical.
Yeah, but that's not going to stop you from understanding what he did or what he went through or anything. I don't think. No. Especially since he's just giving references to it. He's probably putting it in plain English too, I would imagine, for the most part.
Yep, for the most part. And like there's so much like we didn't even get into. Like we just basically scratched the surface of what he talked about. So yeah. But it did for me in this what I've been trying to do like the last kind of 8 weeks is really improve my athletic performance. And I've never really thought of my workouts that way in terms of performance. I'm just like doing it just to be active. So, but this really helped me think about athletic performance in a different way for myself, just being a rando, just normal person. Yeah. And so just showing what's possible and how to approach things, and especially with the mental side of it. Like I really wish I had read this before doing the half marathon, because it gives you, I didn't realize how mental that was going to be. And so this... Well,
but even the fact that you did it too, you didn't have to read a book to be able to fight through and get through it though.
No, you know what I mean? but even like doing all this zone 2 training that I'm doing, I wish I had done that before the half marathon in terms of training for the half marathon, because it would have been easier, to be honest. So, of course it's awesome that I did that.
Well, we could try. Of course, we could try now. I mean, yeah. We could do a half marathon later on and then see. I mean, you just run it and just to run it. You know, it doesn't have to be an official thing. And then see, like, hey, 15 years later, is it any easier?
What's
you know what I mean?
My time?
Like, you wouldn't think that when you're older, when you've
you said
mature,
that nicely.
when you matured. Yeah. So it's interesting. We got to put this into context too. So for our listeners, because we're talking a lot about all these things too that we're doing. You're talking about that you're doing new types of training or whatever. Yeah. But we're not doing any kind of videos or anything like that. So we need to figure out how we can do that. So how we can kind of take the lessons that we're learning and kind of maybe just show people kind of like, hey, this is how we're implementing this kind of stuff. So we'll figure that out too. So
we're not just
if you're listening to it,
for the sake of reading.
But we could still just read books for the sake of reading, because it is really cool.
It is.
Some people, like a lot of people. Like this guy is inspiring. I love talking about a story or whatever. Maybe somebody else who hears this is going to want to swim across. I keep saying across Great Britain, but around it. Yeah. Doesn't mean I'm going to. No. Because I certainly don't want to.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, which brings to the question of adventure-wise. Does this spark anything to you of saying like, oh yeah, you know what? I want to swim across Lake Ontario or whatever the hell it is, right?
No, I have literally no interest in
swimming,
open water swimming that way. When he talks about like creature, like it'd be so stinking cool to swim with the whale, but the idea that there's stuff in the water that I can't see freaks me out. Like even when they were going through Scotland, they even got a report of like a pod of killer whales, and so they were kind of freaked out because the killer whale, now that is something that's going to kill you.
I think a great white shark would probably be the
that would be the worst.
Want to worry about the most,
because killer whales actually haven't killed any human in the wild.
They only kill them in tanks.
Yes, that is true. Watch Blackfish. But it was still like, that's the one thing to be afraid of. If you're going to be afraid of anything, it's going to be
we were talking about before, going camping, maybe there's a bear or there's going to be wolves. I mean, but what are the chances, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know.
Are you really going to but the thing that's different. Ocean is different than like, I want to swim across Lake Superior.
I don't know.
Because there's nothing in a Great Lake. What's in a freshwater?
You don't freaking know.
There's nothing. What do you mean?
You don't
What, the Loch Ness Monster's there?
You don't know.
Yeah, we do know. We actually literally do know.
No.
What's going to be there? That's going to be.
I like the water.
There's nothing in a freshwater that can kill, at least here in Canada, right? We're not talking about where there's alligators or crocodiles where you're down south. Like, there's nothing here.
No,
in the water that is going to get you. Would you get eaten by a pike?
Yeah.
Or a muskie?
I don't know. I'm not swimming's just not my thing. Like I
Yeah.
I love the water. I love being in the water. I love playing.
Swimming's not my thing. I love being in the water.
I love playing in the waves. You saw me in Prince Edward Island.
Yeah.
I freaking had so much fun that day. But the actual art, that wasn't swimming. That was just jumping in the waves. So there you go.
Water.
Yeah, that's my point. I'd rather do that than swim in it. So
Right. Well, we're gonna have to swim if we do.
a triathlon.
our triathlon stuff. So
well, that's a small compared to what you did.
well, true.
Yeah.
But I'm just curious about your whole part of like, there's things in the water. It's like, so
I just can't. I don't know. There's just a thing.
it's like
it just
so many
freaks
people would
me
be like,
out.
I would imagine going there and you're swimming and then all of a sudden a couple, some whales come
I'd
right
cry.
up beside you. That'd be amazing.
I would cry.
Calm down. I don't know if you
I
cry. But you know what I mean? Like that would be so cool.
It
And
would
that's
be
such a
really
crazy story. Like
cool.
especially
Yeah.
since it's not gonna
Yeah.
it's not gonna kill you. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
it'd be amazing, but
But I don't want to do it.
I don't
It's like,
know.
it'd be the most amazing experience in the world. Like hell, I'm gonna do it. So- Whoa.
Anyway, what about you? Would you do something like this? That's insane.
For some reason, like I think of like long distance biking, and I'm just
Yeah.
like, oh my god, just like the pain in my ass all the time because it hurts so much. But
The
I would
literal pain. in
literal
your
pain
ass.
because I'd love to bike across Canada.
That
So
would
I
be
think
really
about that,
cool.
but then again, then maybe I need to get more mentally tough about being able to handle the pain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you just kind of suck it up.
Suck it up, buttercup.
Pucker up. It's it's going to be a wild ride.
But I think-
then swimming.
But then even like thinking about that, like again, how often are you biking? Like, can you somehow, number one, get a better seat for your bike, and then number two, like the more you bike, the more you train for it. Like,
Well, it's
that'll
weird
go
because
away
whenever I go on the
eventually.
bike, I go, this is the new bike.
The new
I should
bike,
just
yeah. You need a
maybe
new
just
seat.
preface this saying it's like I used to bike all the time.
Yeah.
Especially just to and from work or whatever.
Yeah.
And I just bike, like 2 hours a day going
Yeah.
back and forth. Back when we were living in Waterloo and even in Sudbury, I'd bike back and forth to like Muay Thai and stuff like that. So I love biking.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be fine there. I wouldn't have any pain. But then I got this new bike when we moved here to Nova Scotia to bike back and forth to work. And that was about a good 45-minute, 50-minute ride each way. And I just get on the seat and just be like a lot of pain, like a lot. So like really down to the bone, like hurting my bone. So I think there's something wrong with the seat there. Because I'm obviously still wearing the same type of chamois or whatever. So so it's like figuring out the right seat or whatever. But it's funny because I bought basically the same bike.
Yeah.
So which had very similar seat. But anyways, so that's why I'm like so wary of biking now, because it's just like it's like as soon as I start, it's like massively painful, which shouldn't be like that, especially when you're wearing cushioning. So but back to swimming. The idea of swimming is kind of interesting, but definitely not in a I'm going to swim here for 10 days or whatever. It's like just swimming as part of a marathon thing, right? Like even like I would say like if I could spend like 6 or 8 hours swimming for like a day kind of thing, that would be a cool challenge that I would like to do. I don't see myself wanting to do like anything too crazy, but if I was to do something like that, I would just be like, okay, well it's not like a time thing. It's just be like I want to swim across like Lake Ontario or something like that. Yeah, like that's the type of thing that I would want to do. But I have no real desire to do that. Like I said, I would rather just bike across Canada before I do that. Yeah, just because I'm not a good swimmer. Yeah, at all. Yeah. But maybe that's part of the challenge, I guess. Yeah. 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 I don't know. What are you doing over there?
I'm just looking at my notes and stuff, making sure I didn't.
Is there anything else that you want to tell anyone?
Well,
tell anyone, everyone?
So how I first found out about him was he was on Joe Rogan's podcast.
Of course.
Like basically like right after he did the swim, he went on Rogan's podcast. Right. He is such a funny and engaging guy. He's he has this like just contagious smile, really similar to Ash Dykes. Like just
like seems like a good guy.
Yeah, and just like nothing could possibly get him down. So that was a really great podcast to listen to. He also has a YouTube channel and everything, and he has 2 other books that came out. One was
like after this.
One was like the world's fittest cookbook, and then the other one that just came out that I actually kind of want to get is like a full like how to train like within the seasons almost, depending on like when if you're competing for something. So he has that book out as well. That
Within the
looks really
seasons,
interesting.
as in weather seasons or seasons of
Well,
whatever sport you're in.
Well, basically weather seasons, like assuming that your your active season for whatever you're competing in would be like spring, summer type deal.
Yeah.
So different like kind of basically like 4 different phases of
Also
how you
assuming
train.
that you're in a place that has temperate climates that actually has 4 seasons, as opposed to living, close to the equator,
Yeah,
which
Yeah.
has one season,
One season.
hot. Well, I guess it has rain and dry, but
yeah. So I wouldn't.
still, right?
So I wouldn't mind getting that one, and that one's called Blueprint. It's 365-day extreme training to rebuild, build or rebuild a bulletproof body. So just basically making sure, like I think for like injury, to avoid injury as well. So
That's a big thing.
yeah.
It's a huge
So
thing.
he has a really good YouTube channel as well. Just he does some kind of fun stuff because he's just a fun guy. He's
Mhm.
actually trained with Liam and Chris Helmsworth
Mhm.
as well, and then also he's trained with
Those Hollywood trainers are a little bit different though, because those guys are just jacked up on steroids.
Well,
I'm
don't-
so I'm not going to
like-
say that I know for sure, but
yeah.
when they're putting on like 50 pounds of muscle in like 2 months for a movie, it's like
Yeah.
you're getting a little bit of help. You still have to put in the work at the gym. Don't get me wrong. So those guys, you do have to work, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if they're getting a little bit of help.
Yeah. And then like he also has done like a bunch of training with Eddie Hall. So Eddie Hall was
It's a jiu-jitsu guy.
Nope.
Oh, I'm thinking of
somebody
that other guy.
Yep. World's Strongest Man, 2017.
Completely different guy.
Yeah, completely different guy. He actually was the one that just had the boxing match with Thor Bjornsson. It's like the world's heaviest match because this Thor guy played the Mountain in Game of Thrones, and he's like 6'9", and he's a giant. And so Eddie Hall also.
Yeah, I think you were telling me about
I was
this,
telling you about this,
but I don't follow this at all.
Yeah,
so
I don't know why I have this like weird obsession with it, but
Yep, you do.
sometimes I get these like weird things. But anyways, he trained with this Eddie Hall guy, and this Eddie
Right.
Hall's like, they call him the Beast. He is a beast. He's a giant.
Yeah.
So he's trained with these people as well, and just done some kind of really cool
that's cool.
things. So yeah, so just those couple of things. He's really he's a cool guy.
He's a cool
He's
guy.
a cool guy. And I just love how everything is based on science and like
Yeah,
really
of course, right up our alley.
there's evidence to back up everything he's saying, which
Bring
is
in the receipts.
which I love. I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, don't just say something and then that's it. Just take my word
Just
for
take
it.
my word for it. No, like this is actually legit. So yeah.
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 Yeah, but some stuff too. Yeah, I think some stuff is backed by science, but then as he was saying too, and you were saying, some things you just need to take personal too as to what your situation is like too, right? Like, yeah, you need to get a lot of protein or whatever, but if you're somebody that has an allergy to certain types of meats or something like that, then you have to figure out a different way to get in whatever nutrients you need.
And even within the situation, right? Because a lot of the time they couldn't have fresh things on the boat.
Yep.
So that whey was the best way for him to get it.
Exactly.
Protein.
Exactly.
So,
But if you're like allergic to milk or whatever,
that's going to be a problem for you.
yeah. So
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's individual, but yeah, I mean, I think obviously science is really good to give you the overall picture of what things do and how the mechanisms work within your body.
It gives you a framework.
Yeah,
it gives you a really
exactly.
good framework to work
Exactly.
with, for sure.
And then you have to apply that to each individual and see how it fits
Absolutely.
within their system, because everyone's different.
Everyone's different. Absolutely.
There's no one size fits all.
Mm-mm.
And if anyone ever claims that science does that, then they're wrong. And that's just for other things that are like hard, like physics especially, right? Like gravity's gravity. I don't care who you are. You're falling at 9.8 meters per second. that's just what's going to happen. But you know what I mean, right? Like the speed of light is the speed of light. It's not dependent on how your eyes are shaped.
Yes, of
Exactly.
course. Of course.
Yeah.
But isn't gravity just a theory? That's not a law?
I think it's a theory of gravity, I guess. But I mean,
It's not a hard and fast scientific law.
no, I think everything's. I don't know. I can't really talk about the physics that much. But I think there are always experiments and stuff being wrong to try to prove things wrong.
Yes.
And of course, gravity and relativity becomes completely different when you try to merge it with like quantum mechanics and stuff like that, which is a whole nother
My
realm
head's
of
already
things.
spinning.
It's really fascinating. Well, we'll get some physicists on. Maybe just tell us what's going on with all this stuff.
Do you know Lawrence Krauss just lives in Prince Edward Island?
Oh, we'll get him on the show.
I know. That'd be awesome.
That would be pretty cool.
That'd be so cool.
Yeah, it's Something from Nothing, I think, is what is one of his books.
Yeah.
That just blows your mind.
I know.
Because it does blow your mind when you start thinking about the universe.
Mm-hmm.
But like everything was in the size of a marble. Like this
so
makes no sense to me.
I know.
But
I know. Anyways.
yet here we are.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Swimming around islands.
Swimming around islands.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Crazy. All right.
Crazy.
The Art of Resilience by Ross Edgley.
Mm-hmm.
Check it out. 10 out of 10.
Yep.
For Andrea.
Mm-hmm.
Although we're not necessarily going to be swimming anytime soon.
No. I'll swim across Kearney Lake. Our little piece of it.
It's like 15 meters. Jeez. Wow, you
it's the
are.
best I can do. It's
You
the
are
best I
brave.
can do.
Maybe if you do it in the middle of winter time, maybe then that'll be a little bit more exciting.
Hard pass.
You just got to put your mind to it. You just got to stoic. It's just like the ice isn't really cold. Yeah, we got to put a better spin on it, right? It's just that I'm getting a little bit of a cold wake up. It's a nice, refreshing swim.
No.
Just put your mind. You got to think positive.
Yeah.
So with that,
Mm-hmm.
thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. We appreciate it. As always,
Crisp high five.
Chris Pie 5. Another one down. I think, what's this, number 9? I think next one's number 10, which is crazy. Already at
Sweet.
10.
Well, I
Almost
got
at
it.
10.
Well, I have a good one.
Well then, stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
And we'll see you next week.
Sounds good.
Bye.
Bye.